everyone, and welcome to the Jack of All Trades podcast. I'm your new favorite podcast host, Kaylee Musso, and if I'm not your favorite, consider this my application. Anyway, welcome to the episode. I hope you've enjoyed listening, or if this is the first episode you've listened to, welcome. I'm happy to have you here. And if you have no idea anything about me, who I am, feel free to listen to the first episode because that will explain a lot. Anyways, today I'm going to do a travel themed episode, and I'm excited because I love traveling and I love talking about traveling and I love hearing other people's experiences. And so I encourage you to give this episode a chance, even if you're not the biggest on traveling yourself. But I have been very fortunate that growing up, my parents prioritized traveling and like experiences over like buying expensive things. And so we've taken a bunch of different road trips around the United States, and then a little bit in Canada. We've taken a couple cruises. We've been to a couple countries in Europe. And we're not the most, top dollar frequent travelers out there. I'm not like a world traveler, but I have traveled to a lot of places and had a lot of really cool experiences, and I thought it would be fun to share some of those with you guys. And today specifically, I wanted to talk about cruises. And I like to say that I didn't choose the cruise life. The cruise life chose me, based on that saying about the boat life chose me. And realistically, I'm not like an avid cruiser compared to some people. I kind of wish I was, but who has the money for that? Because cruises are expensive. But I will say that even if you have no interest or think you have no interest in ever going on a cruise, don't just skip out on this episode just because of that. Like, I feel like you're going to learn a couple things and be entertained because I have some travel stories anyways. So I have always cruised with Royal Caribbean. That's the cruise line. And for anyone that doesn't know much about the cruise industry, it's kind of similar to like the airline industry in that there's like different, just like how there's different airlines, there's different cruise lines. And you can either, switch around and go on a bunch of different cruise lines, or you can be kind of loyal to just one. And so just like with air travel and like frequent flyer miles and stuff like that, the more that you travel on one cruise line, like certain cruise lines have different benefits that you can rack up from that and points and stuff. So the first cruise that my family went on was on the Royal Caribbean cruise line, and we've done Royal Caribbean ever since. They are great. They're wonderful. I love Royal Caribbean. I feel like they're the perfect mix of everything. Truly the best. So I highly recommend, if you are considering going on a cruise, I highly recommend Royal Caribbean. But anyways, so I've been on, the shortest cruise I was on was like a 5-night cruise, and the longest was like an 8-night cruise. So I've never been on one of those crazy long ones. But anyways, so there's a cruise line, and within the cruise line, there's a bunch of different ships. And in a lot of cruise lines, there's different classes of ships. Like in Royal Caribbean, there's classes of ships, and each class has multiple ships within that class that are all very similar in like size and model and some of the things that they offer on the ship. So I really want to go on like the biggest class of Royal Caribbean, because they have some really cool things. They have like New York City Central Park on them. They have like this massive like water amphitheater and like giant rock climbing walls and all kinds of really cool things on the biggest class of ship. Obviously that would be so expensive, but someday I would love to experience that. But I'm not the one to ask about all of the details on this. Like, my brother and probably parents are a little more familiar than I am. But the first cruise ship that I went on was called the Brilliance of the Seas, and I was in 5th grade, and I'm so bad at translating like what grade I was in to what age I was, but I think probably I would have been like, let's see, I think I would have been like 11, and my parents and brother and I went on our first cruise, and we took my grandparents on my mom's side, and I think it was their first cruise ever as well. And it was like an anniversary present for them, and we had a lot of fun. It was a 5-night cruise. It was Brilliance of the Seas, so that's like a smaller ship, um, but it was still a nice ship. Like now, I think I wouldn't want to go on that size, but at that age, like it was fine for me. Still a great ship, and I remember there was still mini golf, there was still rock climbing, all like things like that. So still stuff to do. Like definitely enjoyed it still. We went to some shows because there's like the big theater, and so you can watch performances and shows. There's typically on Royal Caribbean ships there's any like a big range of shows, from like singing and dancing shows to comedian shows to like um dating shows to like literally anything you can imagine. There are so many cool shows on the ship that you can go to, which is amazing. Um, and the nice thing about cruises is that yes, it's expensive, but like what you're paying for, you're getting like everything right there. Like your food and your housing and your entertainment and like all the things right there in one package, which is really nice. And you get to stop at some pretty cool places. So, um, our first cruise that time left out of Florida, and we stopped at Key West, Florida, and then we stopped at Cozumel, Mexico. I think those were the only two stops on that cruise, I'm pretty sure. Key West was cool. We I don't remember exactly what we did, but I think that's like the southernmost point in the US. So there was like a line to get your picture with that marker. And then I don't remember what all we did, but I think we definitely like walked around, souvenir shopping. Key lime pie was like a big thing there, so we got something to do with that. And I think like roosters, there was a bunch of like roosters and chickens just everywhere. That's what I remember. But then yeah, Cozumel, Mexico, which Cozumel is actually an island, so we weren't even in mainland Mexico. But I remember when we got off the ship, there were like some taxi drivers or something. Like, I don't know if it was taxi, but it was some sort of shuttle service that typically took tourists from the cruise ship area to the beach. And they didn't really speak much English, like at all. And we didn't speak Spanish. So, there was that. But we made it to the beach, and it was like a white sand beach. The water was warm. And it's funny because my mom, she does not like cold water. And she like will not fully submerge or like hardly even go wading if it's cold. And like in Maine, obviously it's like it's cold water, and a lot of places you go, but she was like in the ocean in Mexico. That's how you know it was warm water. And I also brought back some like conch shells, um which were really cool. Like just finding some on the beach, just like really old weathered ones, that was nice. And it's funny now, like looking at the pictures and seeing how young and like the young cringy age that my brother and I were at, like the pictures just look so awkward, but like we were still shorter than my grandparents. And it's just cool to see like when my grandparents were still able to like do that and sit on the beach and walk on the beach and stuff. Like I'm glad we got to have this experience with them when we did. I remember like on the cruise ship on the deck of it playing like shuffleboard with them, and it was just a nice experience. And one thing that I thought was funny was, so on this cruise ship there's the main dining room, and you go every night and you can like eat at the same table every night and have the same waiters every night if you want to. Sometimes you do anyways, but you can also request that if you really like your waiters. And so we had the same ones every night. And cruise ship staff are very, very friendly, and they are usually from like all kinds of different cultures. Like it is so rare on the cruises I've been on to meet an employee that is from the United States. Like most of them are from all kinds of other countries over like Asia and South America and Europe, and like just from everywhere. And so it's really cool, and that is one thing that I love about going on cruises is like you're exposed to so much culture and like just the accents from everywhere and just everyone being from all these different places. It's so cool. And then you get off the cruise and it's like, oh, like why does everyone talking sound the same? Like that's so boring. Like everyone's so basic and American. But that's just me because I love culture and all that stuff. But yeah, so anyways, they're very nice and very like they're there for hospitality and to make sure that you have the best experience possible. And so um the waiters are like very very friendly. They get to know you. They get to know like your food tastes, if you really like shrimp or if you really like garlic or if you don't like blah blah blah, then they'll like they really get to know you and they ask about what you got up to that day, and it's just really cool. And so it's almost like you can get a little bit too attached because you're like, oh, like I'm special. But no, that's just like how they bond with every like there's going to be a new group of people that they're going to bond with at the table next week. So it's like from that standpoint it's kind of sad because it's like, oh, I'm not special. Ugh, they give the same treatment to everybody. But it's just funny. But my grandmother, I think the ship we were on was going to be coming to Maine at some point because there are like Maine and Canada cruises, and I think this ship was going to be doing one like in the fall or something and stopping. And so I don't even know how it got started, but our head waiter was going to be like on that ship, and so like he would be coming into port in Maine in the fall. And my grandmother was like giving him like her number and all this stuff, like like to stay in touch, or like if they did like come into port or whatever. And I mean, he like was friendly and took it and everything, but like obviously he's not going to do anything with it. Like he's being nice, but this is his job, and we're just like normal tourists to him, even though like we're getting all this special treatment. Still, it was just cute. It was funny to see like my grandmother acting as if like this is some lifelong connection that we're gonna like stay in touch. Obviously that never happened, but it was just funny. And there's also, at least on Royal Caribbean, I can't speak for other cruises, I have no idea, but generally the nights have a theme. And one thing that I love about cruises is just like getting dressed up for dinner. Because it's like, you've been out and about all day in the sun probably, and then you come back to your room and get all dressed up for dinner, get all fancy. But usually there's nights that are like semi-formal, and then sometimes there's like a Caribbean or like tropical themed night. It just depends on the cruise, but or sometimes there's like an all white themed night, like stuff like that, and you can kind of see ahead of time so you know what to pack. But there's usually a formal night, or if it's a longer cruise, there's usually two, and that's when everyone gets like all dressed up, and like there's photographers everywhere coming around to the tables and all these things. And so on formal night on this cruise, Grandpa was in his suit, and this is one thing that I wish I would have seen, but I actually wasn't there. I didn't witness it. But so apparently when Grandpa was waiting for us ladies, because I guess probably Dad was with him and Ethan, I don't know. This other old lady, somehow it ended up that Grandpa and this old lady were dancing together. And like I have never seen my grandparents dance. I don't even know if they ever have. Like I have no idea. Maybe in their young day. I don't know. But I've never seen it before. Like they're not dancers. And so and like Grandpa didn't know this lady, but then there's this one picture of Grandpa dancing with this lady, and it's just so cute to me. But I don't know. I think Grandma thought it was funny. I think she was tickled pink probably. But it was funny. And then another story that comes to mind is, so if I was in 5th grade, if I was like 11, then my brother would have been like 13 probably. And so we were still pretty young, but we were still at the age where we could have some independence on the ship, starting to be able to go off and do our own things. And so there was this atrium sort of area that had these glass elevators and that went up and down so you could see out over. And I remember my brother was off in the elevator, and I think he had pressed like every single button, like all the floors. And so I don't know, on this ship it was a smaller ship, so it might have been like 10 floors. I don't remember exactly, but he had pressed all the buttons because he was the only one in the elevator, and he, just for fun. You know how kids do that sometimes, like, or even as an adult, you have probably been tempted at some point, I'm sure. But anyways, so, and I'm with my dad and grandfather maybe, and somewhere like down on a lower floor. We know nothing about this, don't know what's happening. But eventually my brother comes back and he's like all shaken up, and he might have even been like in tears, or um I don't he was like really really shaken up, and he was trying to explain what happened. And apparently a bunch of drunk adults had gotten on the elevator like at the next floor, and so of course when people get on the elevator after you, that kind of pins you to the back. And so he's this, little 13-year-old pinned to the back, and they saw that he had pressed all the buttons, and they were like giving him such a hard time about it. And he would probably remember the story better than me because I wasn't there. But they were giving him a hard time about it and like being really mean to him, and they were like threatening him, not gonna let him get off. And he was like terrified, obviously, because he had just like pressed the buttons just for fun, to see him all light up. And here are these like drunk adults threatening him, not letting him off, like. And honestly, low-key kind of scary. Like, that is scary. And I'm glad that he was okay and that like they didn't actually do anything to him, because that's kind of terrifying. So anyways, that's that story from the cruise ship. The brilliance of the seas. And also one thing that is interesting is when you get on a cruise ship, we had to do a muster drill before we left the port. And so everyone is assigned a station at somewhere throughout the ship where you would gather if there was an emergency and you have to get off the ship for any reason, like in the boats that they have on the ship, which walking underneath those things, like the lifeboat type things, like they're massive. Like some of them are like 2-story, but they're massive. I've actually ridden on one before because on our second cruise, we had to tender. It's called tendering, where if there isn't like a good dock, then you tender, you drop the anchor, and then you get into those boats and you take that boat from the ship to the shore. So, and they're massive. But anyways, at these muster drills, you like gather and then you just have to like listen to the safety instructions and do all the things. So, that was interesting, but they like sound the alarm and everything, which is, it was just crazy. I just remember there was some like drunk lady behind us that like already drunk. I was like, we haven't even been on the ship that long. Why are you already drunk? Like, chill out a second. I don't know. But she was being so obnoxious when like they were just trying to give us all the safety instructions and stuff. So I don't know. But anyways, I'm rambling. So let's move on. Second cruise was on the Anthem of the Seas. I was in 7th grade. So now I was probably like 13, and this was a bigger ship, and this one had, let's see, I don't remember all the, okay, I'm trying to remember the order of things, because there's one ship that I have been on twice, but I can't remember if it's Anthem or Adventure. So hold on, let me check. Okay, I just checked, and yeah, it was Anthem of the Seas. That was my second cruise, and that ship had a bunch of really cool things, like a surfing simulator called the Flow Rider. I don't know if any of you have ever seen that, but it's like kind of this sloped, soft surface that shoots water out like you're like riding a wave, and then you can surf on it basically, or like do boogie boarding. And the sports staff, the instructors and everyone, like they are usually so good, and they'll like sometimes demonstrate in between times and like just carve up that way. It is so cool. It's amazing. By the way, this is the perfect moment to plug the episode that I did about the episode called Was I a Stalker, that I did about like childhood crush stuff, because I did talk a little bit on that episode about my cruise crush or crushes or obsession. And so if you haven't listened to that, please go listen to it. But if you have, just keep that stuff in mind. Like that's the context. The second cruise is the cruise when all of that stuff happened. But yeah, anyways, I would spend like hours and hours and hours at the sports complex on this cruise, because there was also the skydiving simulator, which we did try, and that was really cool as well. It's like this giant glass tube with a massive fan underneath it, and you have to wear the helmet and the goggles and the suit and everything, and there's an instructor in there with you, but you're in like skydiving position and you're like floating in the air, and it's really cool. As you're like looking out over the ocean, it's amazing. Same with like the rock climbing. It's really cool when you get to the top of the rock climbing wall and you're like looking out and you see the ocean. There's also like the North Star on this ship, which goes, it's this like giant glass capsule on the end of this long arm. And you get in it and it rises really slowly way above the ship and then out over the ocean. And you can do it while you're in port or while you're at sea. They have different times. So it is really cool. And like you're looking out over the pool deck and everything. There's also a solarium, which is supposed to be like adults only. It's like a nicer kind of like covered pool area where there's like a bunch of tropical plants and it's like warmer in there. There's a little bar and like a bistro type of thing. It's like all glassed in. And also the gym, like the gym on the ship is really cool. I didn't use it on the second cruise, but when we went on the ship again, a different time, I did use it, and it's really cool, like with all these windows looking out over the ocean while you're working out. And I know that some people are probably like freaked out by that of like, look at all this ocean around us. And honestly, like I probably could freak myself out about it, but I just don't let it get to me. And honestly, there are plenty of times if you're not like on one of those upper decks, like you sometimes forget that you're even on a ship, because like on this ship, or most of the ships anyways, there's like a central promenade sort of area that's kind of like being inside a mall. Like there's restaurants, there's shopping, there's bars, there's like all kinds of stuff right along this like indoor. And so unless you're like directly at a window somewhere like the back of one of those places, you have no idea that you're even on a ship, which is really cool. So yeah, and there's also like I said, the big stage with all the performances, the big theater. On this ship too, there was what was called the Cafe 270 and the Lounge 270, which was at the back of the ship, and it was 270 degrees around, like these massive floor to ceiling windows, and there was like a 2-story, just like comfortable lounge sort of area, but there was also shows in there with like the most incredible dancers, and like they come down suspended from the ceiling, and like, oh, it was incredible. Like truly, entertainment on cruises is top tier, I'm telling you. But this cruise, we stopped at Cape Canaveral, Florida. And this particular time we mostly just like walked around. We didn't really do anything too exciting. You can get excursions from there to other places, but we didn't really. We saw some alligators though, or crocodiles, I actually don't know. I'm not the expert on that, but and then we also stopped at Royal Caribbean's private island, Coco Cay, in the Bahamas. And at the time, because now it's been had a whole makeover, but at the time it was still just like a chill island where unfortunately when we were there the weather wasn't the best because like some big storm had been coming through. But I remember like we saw sharks in the water, like not massive ones, but we saw sharks kind of in the shallows. But yeah, we had a beach day. We walked around. And the private island, the way that works is like, you can get lunch on the island as if you're getting it on the ship. Like a bunch of the staff from the ship gets off and is working. They work that whole area. It's kind of like one of the cafes on the ship that they just basically bring to shore, which is really cool. So yeah, it was nice. That was a place that we had to like tender out in the water and then take the boats into shore. And then our last stop was Nassau, Bahamas. And Nassau, Bahamas, I remember we did like the Queen's Staircase, because there's a bunch of history and stuff there, which is really cool. So we did some of that. And then we also did go to the beach a little bit, which was fun. So, I mean, it's not like my top choice, I guess, of like destination, but it was still really, really cool. Like that's where Atlantis is, like that big resort and everything. And I remember like when we first got off the ship, there was like this whole pavilion where locals were like braiding hair, and like they were asking mom if she wanted my hair braided. And I remember thinking like, why don't they just ask me? But obviously like the parents are going to be the ones with the money, so they're going to target the parents, obviously. But I did not get my hair braided. I don't think it'd be very comfortable. I also am not going to sit there for however long it takes when I came to like see the sights, you know. And that's just me. But yeah. And so that cruise I think was like 7 nights. I think it was 7-night cruise. And yeah, I had a really hard time leaving that one because I got very, very attached to the staff. And again, you probably want to listen to that episode called Was I a Stalker if you haven't, because that'll explain the context for you. Um, but yeah, I'm trying to think if I have any like crazy, outstanding like stories from that, but I don't think so. I remember we did like, well, of course they have like bumper cars and things like that too. And my brother and I did circus school on that cruise, which was like something you could sign up for in the sports complex where they called it circus school, I'm pretty sure, but like it was a trapeze. And so you have to do the training on the ground first, and then you climb up to this really, really high platform. And you're harnessed in, obviously, but and then you have to like they have this massive inflated thing underneath you for like when you fall, you just fall into that. But you have to like reach out way out over just the abyss to grab the trapeze with your hands, and then you're like swinging on it back and forth, and then you're supposed to try and like get your feet up and hooked over the bar and then let go with your hands. So you're hanging from like your knees basically and swinging. And I remember getting to the point of like my feet were up and over like my knees, but I couldn't bring myself to let go with my hands because I was like so scared. Like it was fun, but I was so scared. And you only get like one turn because there was a bunch of people, and then you just have to like let go and fall into this giant inflatable thing that like swallows you up, and then you have to crawl out. But it was really fun. It was fun. I also always joke that like the worst car accident I got into was like a bumper car accident, so to speak, on that cruise because my bumper car like stopped working for some reason for a bit, so it was just like stuck. No matter what I did, turn the wheel, foot on the gas, wouldn't go anywhere. And someone hit me from behind so hard, like I got severe whiplash from it, and it like jolted it back into action. But that was low key kind of not the most fun. I also remember watching like I forget. Some of you are probably gonna know exactly what I'm talking about, but it's like bike. It's bike related. It's like tricks. Like it's a special type of bike that has like extra places to stand, and like people do all. It's like, is it BMX or I don't remember exactly, but there was a show like that was fun to watch. There was roller skating. I went roller skating for the first time on that ship. So that was fun. Yeah, it was great. It was a lot of fun. But anyways, fast forward to my next cruise, which was actually in 2020. And what's crazy is the cruise I went on in 2020 was, so they did one more cruise the week after that, and then everything shut down, because of, the global situation that was happening. So it was like we got it just in time. And I'm going to try not to blur all of my different cruise experiences together but in my head they're kind of all blurring together, and it's hard to remember like what specifically was what time on what ship. But so this third cruise was on the Adventure of the Seas. And it was really fun. I think it was like a 7 or 8 night cruise, and this time we took my grandmother on my dad's side. We took her on the cruise, and so that was really cool. And so her and I actually had a room together, and the way that this ship was, that central promenade, like the kind of mall sort of area, there was a couple levels of bedrooms that looked out over, like our window was out over the promenade, and so we could like sit and people watch, kind of like having a window that looks out over the street, and you can like see people sitting down below at like these tables outside the restaurants and stuff. It was literally that. And so it was cool. We had like a window seat and everything, and so the people watching was so like entertaining. And there was one of the first nights there was like a show on the promenade, and there was this bridge that goes across it, and so like some of the staff was like in wigs and costumes and like dancing and being goofy and stuff, and like we just got a front row seat right from our room. We didn't even have to fight all the crowds that were down below. We could just watch. It was so fun. But obviously you have to make sure in a situation like that you close your curtains if you're going to do anything, because we saw some sights. People, I think, forgot about that. But anyways, yeah, it was fun. And I remember like my grandmother sometimes has a hard time like navigating like certain stuff with directions. And so there was one time, this is probably low key kind of mean, like I probably shouldn't have, but I was just being goofy, like no ill intentions, but I of course I would like learn my way around the ship within like the first day of being on it, even though it's a big ship. But so I was heading back to the room, and so was she, and I uh I think I was going first. I was like leading, and so I decided to turn the wrong way and go towards the opposite end of the ship when we got into the hallway with all of our rooms. And I was just like gonna see how long until she noticed that like we weren't getting to our room, and like it was quite a while until she picked up on it. And I just thought it was kind of funny. Like, would I do that now? Probably not, but me at the time, I thought that was a really funny thing to do. um but yeah, I remember getting my first like pedicure on that ship, like at the spa. My mom and I went, and we got like French tips, and it was cool. And I remember, I remember getting really attached to our waiters, because we did have the same waiters, the same like all of the nights, and in the dining room for dinner. And turns out our assistant waiter, because you have a waiter and an assistant waiter, um, and our assistant waiter, turns out that because usually they like to do fun sort of like some sort of show or something in the dining room, like the last night to kind of send everybody off. And so sometimes it's like a parade of all the staff kind of like dancing and stuff through the dining area. But in this dining room, it was like all one big dining room. It was massive. It was 2 stories. There was a giant central staircase. And so all of the staff gathered on the staircase and they performed. And it was actually our assistant waiter that pulls out a guitar and has a microphone, and he starts singing. And it's a song called Remember Me. It's like Remember Me Coco or something. It's from a movie. But literally it was the most like I have a video of it, and after this cruise I remember like watching it and just like crying because I missed it so much. And like it was so cool that it was our waiter, like of everyone, that I was like, I had no idea he could sing. Like that's so cool. And it's just so sad because you know that like they're singing that exact song like the next week to the next group of tourists, and like you're not any more special than anyone else, but you just form such a connection when you go on these cruises. Like it's great. It's amazing. And our sectional head waiter was from Turkey. And so my grandmother, she's funny because people like to tease her, and she likes to tease right back, but she just gets a lot of attention sometimes. And so she caught the attention of this sectional head waiter throughout the cruise, and he would swing by and he would like to tease her, and she couldn't understand why. But and she was like so embarrassed about it, but it was funny to the rest of us. Like he would sometimes like he would walk by from a few tables away, and then but like she wouldn't be making eye contact, so he would back up and like look again and like try and get her attention and walk by. It was the funniest thing. But there was one night when mom and dad decided to go to a different restaurant that you have to like pay for, because a lot of the places to eat on the cruise are included, but there are some specialty dining places you can go and pay for. So they decided to have a little date night and went and did that. So it was just my brother and grandmother and I in the main dining room. And that night all of the waiters did like a performance on the stairs, and it was the chicken dance, you know, the one that's like that one, like with the little hand movements. They did the chicken dance. And so at this point there weren't that many people left in the dining room, but like they called up, you know, people up that were at the tables and stuff, and we were like all watching the performance. And then our sectional head waiter brings me and my brother and grandmother to the front, like facing the whole staircase of staff, to do the chicken dance with them. And then and like is trying to like show it to my grandmother and all this stuff, and it was the funniest thing ever. And like, oh, it was crazy. Like just him continuing to seek her out was the funniest thing ever. And like in the video, because I think at one point, like after Ethan and I weren't anymore, but like she still was doing the dance stuff, like in the video, some other old guy that was watching was like, hey, look at that old lady. And I was like, it was just so funny. And she was like so embarrassed afterwards walking out. But we were like, Mom, Dad, you will not believe what you missed. Like you chose the wrong night to go somewhere else, like the wrong night. But yeah, that was fun. And I think on that cruise ship too, there was an ice skating rink. So we went to that show, and that was really cool too. And like anyone that performs on a cruise ship is incredible, because not only do they find like seriously the most talented people, but also like this is a moving cruise ship. And once in a while, like if the sea is a little rougher or whatever, like you can feel it. And so if you're doing like a triple axel jump on skates and then you like are trying to land, but the ship is like tilting a little bit, well, that's really difficult. And like same with dancing. If you're trying to dance on the stage and then like the stage is moving a little bit, that's kind of crazy. Um and so, once in a while, if the sea is like really, really too rough, they might have to like cancel a show. Like they have done that on occasion. And like for the most part, especially on the bigger ships, you don't necessarily feel it that much unless it is really like rough seas. But it's funny because all the tourists will be walking crooked, but all the staff are so used to it that they just know how to walk in a straight line, carrying like 15 trays on their hands. It's like insane. And you can also, what I've found to be helpful on every cruise I've been on is I've brought like sea bands. Some people get like a little patch behind their ear, but a sea band is like a little fabric bracelet with a tiny little plastic sort of ball that's like a pressure point, and you just wear it on your wrist, and it like helps if you feel like you're gonna experience any like nausea or anything from the ship. But like I said, for the most part, you really don't feel it. I feel like this episode is getting so long already and I still have like so much to talk about. But anyways, the stops on this cruise, the first stop was Labadee, Haiti. And Labadee is a part of Haiti that is like privately owned by Royal Caribbean, just like how they have, private islands and stuff. And so it was beautiful, and it was a nice little like beach like resort type of situation. That one also did have the thing where the staff, some of them came off the cruise ship and like served you lunch, because I remember seeing our assistant waiter there. And so that was cool. But one thing that we did, in addition to like just lounging by the beach for a while, one thing that we did there was a zip line. And to this day, I love zip lining, and we've been on a fair amount, like in Canada, on the west coast of the States, like just different places. We've been on zip lines before, even like right in Maine. But this was seriously the coolest I have ever been on. And like, it's an experience that I wish I could relive over and over again, because it was so surreal and breathtaking. You got driven up to the top of this mountain, and then you would zip line from the top all the way down, like across the water and the beach and the bay, like all the way down to the bottom. And it was like it was quite a long zip line, actually. It was like, it took a while, so you really had time to take in the sights, and you could see the cruise ship docked down there, and it was so beautiful. And of course we had gorgeous weather, like crystal clear, like turquoise water, and when you got lower over the water, you could see like coral and stuff in it. And it was just absolutely breathtaking. And it was one of those moments that you're like trying to drink in, just soak it all in as much as possible, because you're like, this is only gonna last a minute. Like, I have to be so present right now, because this is never gonna happen again. Like, truly, it was so surreal. One of my favorite travel things that I've done, like, ever. It was incredible, and I wish I could go back, because truly it was great. And one thing about like that, having that destination, like a lot of the locals like that live in Haiti, like it is a very poor area, and some of the locals will come and like sell different souvenirs and different things, so like it's good for business for them, but you do have to be really careful sometimes. And I remember at one point I was walking by myself for some reason. I don't know if my parents and brother were I don't know if they were like just shopping in a different part or what. Like, this was when we were doing some souvenir shopping, and I was walking by myself, and I was waiting outside, and this one local, he kept trying to get me to come up to his shop, like come up to my shop. And I was like, no, like I'm okay, thank you, like I'm all set. And so then I was waiting, and he kept like, he was getting pretty like adamant about it and pretty forceful, and like, just walk up this way, like it's just up this, like he was like seriously trying to get me to go with him, and I'm like, no, I'm all set, like thank you. And I was trying to like walk away, and he would like follow me. And eventually there was like a security guy wearing like a security t-shirt, and he came over and told the guy to like back off, and I was like, thank you. So you just have to be careful. But obviously, like, these people are trying to make money because they really need it. So, um, you wish the best for them. But it was, yeah. So it was cool because you got to see like some Haitian culture. I think that's how you'd say it, Haitian. I don't know. Like, there was some dancers and stuff like that. So that was really cool. But the next stop that we went to was San Juan, Puerto Rico. And we went around this fort, which was a really cool and like overlooking the ocean. I have some gorgeous pictures from it because it was like absolutely beautiful. We saw a really nice sunset there. I got very sunburnt there, like so toasty. We were out in the sun a lot. And one thing I remember is that we were like walking along the water on this trail that kind of went between like the fort wall and the water. And we were like, oh, look, there's a cat. And then we're like, oh, look, there's another cat. Oh, look, there's a third cat. And then we could figure out that they were stray cats. And then I was like, let me count because, wow, that's a lot of like stray cats. Guys, I stopped counting when I got to 100 cats. 100. And there were more than that. And some of them were very scary. Like, they would cross the path in front of you and their like eyes were all yellowed and they were like all scrawny looking, and some of them weren't walking right, and like it was some of them were like scary. And I have a cat at home. Like, I love cats, but some of these guys were like, I don't know what rabies or something you might be carrying. Like, please stay away from me, because these are just like wild stray cats that like just roam the streets and stuff. So it was crazy. They would just like materialize out of nowhere. It was insane. But anyways, that was Puerto Rico. And then we stopped at St. Thomas, which is the U.S. Virgin Islands. And there, I remember we took a tour sort of situation. It was like a little, just like a little bus, like a little like a big van type of thing. This like tour company, like Big Joe or something. I think it was something like that. And so he took us and like a few other people, I think were probably part of it maybe, around. I think we like drove around some of the historic part. We drove up to like a view overlooking, which was really gorgeous. And we got to shop for some souvenirs. And then there was also these instruments that I don't know what they're called. I wish I knew, but it's like a big metal like bowl kind of with a bunch of like dents in it. I'm not explaining this very well, but anyways, you hit it with mallets, and like each, depending on where you hit it, it like makes a different note. And so there's people playing those, which was really cool. I had never seen that instrument before. And then we went to the beach. And so this tour guy dropped us off at the beach for a couple hours. Then he came and picked us up. And when he picked us up, it was like there was a couple other ladies there too, and they had to get to a cruise ship on the other side of the island, or like some other port, and apparently they had to be there sooner. So he was like, if you guys don't mind, like, I'll drop you guys off at this like souvenir market sort of place, and then I'll take them to their ship, and then I'll come pick you up and bring you to your ship. And we were like, okay. And like, this guy had really good reviews, so like we weren't feeling like unsafe or anything, but we were just like, okay, like, I guess that's fine. And so now we're just like have time to kill, where we're just roaming around this place like souvenir. And then eventually it was like, okay, like, it's been a while, we need to get on the ship, like the last thing I want is to be stranded here. And like, he wasn't coming and wasn't coming and wasn't coming. And then eventually he like finally made it back just in time to where we got back to the ship, and it was going to be closing in like 10 minutes for getting on. So I was like so stressed. I was like speed walking across the big concrete dock, like, to get to it. And that's the closest we've ever cut it. And it wasn't our fault. And for a second there, I think we were a little bit worried that like he wasn't going to come back at all, or wasn't going to come back in time, and we were going to miss our ship. And so that was like a little bit scary, not going to lie. But anyways, the last stop we went to was, I'm trying to speed this up because I'm talking your ear off, but the last stop we went to was St. Martin in the Dutch West Indies in the Caribbean. And that actually is an interesting place because half of it belongs to France, and then half of it is Dutch. So you actually like cross the border while you're there. So we took a tour there on a tour bus, but this was like a much bigger tour bus with a lot of people. But we went through customs, like we didn't have to get off the bus, but like we crossed the border. And so it was just interesting. But he was telling us about these monkeys that'll like come in and get in your fridge and stuff like that. So it was a really beautiful place. It was interesting to take a tour there as well. We could see like damage from a storm that had come through. Same with Puerto Rico. There was like storm damage. But yeah, it was a really pretty place as well. I mean, nothing crazy about it that stands out to me, but it was a cool place. Back on the topic of things to do on the cruise ship, I almost entered a speed climbing competition because I was really good at the rock climbing, and actually like one of the staff was kind of coaching me through on like strategy because I was good. But then I wanted to watch the flow show instead, and they were at the same time. And the flow show, this doesn't happen on every cruise, but some cruises, like the staff that are good at riding the flow rider and doing the surfing simulator, or even if they're like average, like they'll put on this show where they do all these cool tricks and stunts, and some of them work and some of them don't, and it just adds to the entertainment because they make it so goofy. Like at one point they're like playing dodgeball while like trying to surf, or they're trying to like do all these crazy stunts that then like may or may not work, or they're like acting out some scene from Jaws, or like it's just so they make it so entertaining. So I was like, of course I have to watch that. Like I have to, I have to. So yeah, that was fun. I have tried both surfing and boogie boarding on these surfing simulators. Can't say that I was like amazing at surfing. It's very hard actually. But I tried it, and that's what counts. Okay. Okay, and I think we just have this one last cruise left that I haven't mentioned, and it was on the same ship that I went on in 7th grade. It was on Anthem of the Seas, which like as much as I do really want to go on, like there's other ships that I really want to go on, like bigger ones, different ones that I haven't been on. Like there was something cool about being on a ship I had already been on, just because I was like, oh, this is familiar. Like I know all the spots already. I know all the things. Like, so it was cool. And so that one we went on last spring, I think. So that would have been 2024, spring of 2024. And that one we went on with my 2 cousins on my dad's side. It was our high school graduation present for both of them. For one of them it was early, for one of them it was late, but they had never been on a cruise. And I don't think they had ever even been to Florida. And actually, pause, because I just remembered something funny. Speaking of leaving out of Florida, not the most recent cruise, but the one before that we went on, left out of Bayonne, New Jersey. And it was funny because it was actually such a really nice day. It was gorgeous out. Even though it was like winter, it was like record heat temperatures or something. And so it was so nice out. And everyone was out on the deck when we were leaving port, and we had to go under this really big bridge. And they did give like a heads up announcement about it, but there were these ladies that were like out sunbathing, and they didn't see the bridge coming because I guess, I don't know, they're facing the wrong way or they weren't paying attention. And like all of a sudden this shadow drops over them, and they were like so startled, and it was the funniest thing to witness. But anyway, I just remember that. That's a side story. But back to the most recent cruise on Anthem of the Seas. Left out of Florida with my parents, my brother, my 2 cousins. It was fun because so my parents got a room together, and then my brother and our guy cousin got a room together, and then me and the girl cousin got a room together. And so it was really fun. And we stopped at all the same places we had last time we went on that cruise. So again, like destination wise, it wasn't necessarily like my favorite. But it was still cool because we did some like different things that we hadn't before. Like this time at not Key West, that was the first cruise, at Cape Canaveral, Florida. This time we did an excursion to NASA. And so we got to take this whole tour of the place, which is really cool. See some like massive rockets, and it was really, really cool. And like see the facility too, where they like build some of them, and they are giant. And like we had a tour guide as well, and so that was really cool actually to spend the day doing that. And I'm glad that we got to do that this time because it was very, very interesting. So I actually would recommend. But when when you book an excursion through the cruise line like that, it's cool because, you know, they kind of take care of it for you as far as like you all get on this certain bus at a certain time and come back at a certain time, and they kind of like handle that for you. It's not just something that you found on your own and are planning to do. So that's cool. But anyway, then our next stop was at Coco Cay, the Bahamas, and this time they had redone the entire island. This was the private island. They had redone it and turned it into this like kind of like a massive resort, honestly. Like zip lines and like water parks, like theme parks, like all, it was really cool, like this tropical resort type thing. And still like plenty of beaches and everything. And how that works is like staff goes and they'll like live on that island for a certain amount of time. Like they'll live on the island and work there. And so it's really cool. And we actually did a kayaking tour. So we all got to go kayaking in the gorgeous water, like with this whole group. And we loved our tour guide. She was so funny and like relatable. She was great. And there was definitely like certain people in the group, certain tourists that were like very, like they should not have been in kayaks. They really didn't know what they were doing and were being kind of dumb. So it was like, okay, stay away from them. It was just, you know, there's bound to be those in every group, but it was like even something simple, like when we were all getting in our kayaks and like waiting, we were supposed to kind of like line up along the buoy line, and then some people were just like paddling around. It's like, hello, like follow directions, you're grown adult. And then it was funny because on the cruise ship then, like later, I kept running into these people again, and I'm like, so you guys are those dumb kayakers. Like it was funny because some people really could not steer and it was ridiculous. But yeah, it was a really cool experience, very tiring on the arms for sure. And also that morning, my brother and I and two cousins had done this zip line thing over the island, which was really cool. Again, I love zip lining, so any chance I get to do that. And then we spent a lot of time on the beach and just like walking around. One of my cousins, he liked to play soccer on the ship, and so I think he also just liked to be very independent, and so he really enjoyed getting to play soccer on that cruise. Like any chance he would get when they were doing it in the sports complex, like that's where he was playing soccer, which was cool because that's one thing about cruises is that there's something for everyone, and you can just kind of, if you want to lounge by the pool all day you can, and if you want to go do more exciting things you can. So yeah, it's just, there's something for everyone, and it's really fun. Like I said, some of the ships have mini golf on them. Like, there's just all kinds of things to do. So, like there's video game arcades, there's everything. Like these ships even have like daycare type situation for like where kids can go. Like no joke, there's stuff like that, which is really cool. Or there was like a laser tag. They did laser tag. They'll have like movie nights where out on the pool deck they have a movie playing and stuff. There's like a lazy river that my cousin and brother and I went in. That was fun. And so, yeah, there's just so much to do, and I just absolutely love it. And then our last cruise stop was Nassau, Bahamas, and we did some of the same things again, just because my cousins hadn't, like the Queen's Staircase and like the little fort. And I actually got to try like coconut, like real coconut milk, or not milk, but like just whatever, when you first crack open the coconut. I sound so uneducated, but whatever. When you first, there was a guy that was doing it right there. Like you would buy a coconut and then he would like slice it open for you and put the straw in, and it was like, we got two different ones and one of them was a little sweeter than the other, but like it was interesting. It definitely was not like all doctored up like what you would have after it's been all processed. So it was like very, very natural. But yeah, that was cool. We did a bunch of walking around there. It was very, very hot. And they also had changed the, like where I used to, as if it was like all the time, where they had asked me before if I wanted my hair braided and stuff, like that whole area was completely upscaled into this like touristy, like cobblestone or brick like pathway, like right along the water, all with all these like finished off like stores and shops and like touristy little places like that. So it was just interesting to see how the place changed since I was there last. But it was really cool still to get to experience. And then yeah, just on the ship was really fun. There was this band that we absolutely loved, my brother and cousin and I. They were the Amazing Iconic Band, I think they were called, and they were incredible. They performed at several different venues throughout the ship on different nights, and we tried to be there as best we could, and it was so much fun. They were so talented. There's so many talented musicians in general on the cruise ship, like performers. Oh, I absolutely love it. We went to the Spectra's Cabaret show again in the 270 lounge at the back of the ship, and those dancers were like, I literally fell in love with them. They are so skilled, like their stage presence, it was incredible. And there were points when they were like going up through the aisles, like doing dances and stuff, and so you're like right up close to them. It was the coolest thing ever. Like, absolutely loved it. Okay, like loved it. And we went to this show that was like a dating type show. It was funny, and they were doing a kiss cam beforehand, like in the audience, and mom and dad were there, but they were on the other side of the venue, and so we were really hoping that they would end up on the kiss cam, but they didn't. But it was funny nonetheless. So yeah, I'm trying to think of like if there's any other fun little stories I have, but I just feel like I've rambled for way too long, so I don't want to talk your ear off anymore. I just can't express enough how much I love going on cruises, just because of how many fun things there are to just do. Like, whatever your speed of vacation is, there is that for you. Like, and the staff is so nice, and like your housekeeping person, that it's like the same person that does your room every day, and they're so nice, and you can tell them like roughly a time of when you would like them to try and do your room, when you think you're going to be out or not. And they'll leave like little towel animals and stuff. They'll like make your bed, they'll turn down the sheets at night, they'll leave schedules and things for you, and all these little things. And they're like truly the sweetest. They're so understanding. And like there's always, if you're hungry, there's almost always somewhere you can go and get food. Like some of the cruise ships will have like midnight cafe type situations, but it's like if you want to go get a slice of pizza or a little dessert or whatever, like you can. And if you want like sit down dining, you could go to the main dining room. If you want more of like a buffet style with dozens and dozens of options, you can go to the Windjammer Cafe or like one of the other options, you know. And if you want like music or entertainment in the evening, there's lots of options for that, you know. So it's really cool. Like, I highly recommend, unless you're like, you know, petrified of water or whatever the case may be, like I highly recommend giving it a try if you want, because cruises are so fun. And don't knock it till you try it, I would say. Like, obviously no one's going to force you to go, but like I feel like people that haven't been on a cruise judge it so much and like just don't understand kind of what it's like, and they're like, oh, I would never want to do that, or oh, like I don't know, people just are going to judge anything until they've tried it. Like, I'm guilty of that too, obviously, but the post-cruise depression is just so real, because like when you're on the cruise, everyone is like taking care of your every need. Like, you can, like, even at these cafes, like you just leave your dishes wherever and they will come and pick it up. Like, you don't have to lift a finger while you were on the cruise. And then you get home and you're like, I have to put my dishes in the dishwasher? I have to fold my own towel? I have to, like, literally any basic task that you haven't had to do for like a week or whatever, and now you have to do it. It's like, oh, back to real life, back to reality, you know, like back to the grind. So and like I said, you get back and like everyone just sounds the same, because everyone's like just basic white Americans, at least like where I'm from in Maine. Obviously there are parts of the country that are much more cultured, but for me, who loves being immersed in culture, to get back to where I'm from and it's all just like boring, I don't know. That's why I love traveling so much and getting out to see the world and experience things. So I won't talk your ear off anymore. This is definitely the longest episode, because we're coming on like an hour, and usually I like to keep it to like 35-40 minutes. So my apologies if you did stick with me this entire episode. Thank you. And I will talk to you guys next week, and I hope you have a great day, a great week, a great weekend, whatever it is for you, and I'll talk to you next time.